the right people come together at the right moment, when they care almost as much about winning as they do about each other, they can become the best of the best.
Welcome to the best soccer show. The best soccer show in the whole world.
Here we go, boys and girls. We are live at the best soccer show, North American Soccer Network, NASN.TV, NASNradio.com. Jason Davis and Jared Dubois.
Why can't a homie own 28 sweaters?
Because you live in Southern California. If you lived in Chicago, I'd be like, that's like half the sweaters you need, 28 sweaters. That's not even, what is that? That's a joke. Why do you only have, you live in SoCal. You live where...
You forget, it's not about weather, it's about fashion.
I know, with you, it's definitely about fashion. But you don't have, there are no other fashion choices beyond the sweater. Is that just your game?
What, it's like one... That's like saying there's one type of woman, sir. There's so I got ones that are like ribbed for my pleasure. I got ones that are zip ups. I got ones that are over the head. I got hoodies.
How many are those?
I got cardigans.
How many are Cosby sweaters? How many are Christmas?
Zero, sir. Zero. Come on. I just told you it was about fashion. I'm not talking 1980s fashion.
They're all straight off the mannequin, basically.
No, to be honest with you, if I'm being really frank, most of them are my wife's. I had like 10.
Oh, okay. Jared's referring to a tweet earlier. His dry cleaning bill was outrageous because he has.
Oh, dude, it's ridiculous. I mean, like it's more money than I spent on my kid on Christmas.
Speaking of Christmas, I cannot get the Wham! Last Christmas song out of my damn. And this is
it's my favorite Christmas song.
Okay. It's not mine, but I've had discussions about Christmas songs a lot on Twitter in the past couple of weeks. Our boy Friendly Foe says that the Paul McCartney Christmas song, what's that one called, is the worst Christmas song of all time. It's the
one he did when he was with Wings, right?
It's a crime. It's all synthesizer.
Come on. Has there been a Christmas song in the last 30 years that isn't about making money?
That was my question. When is the last good original Christmas song recorded? Because I mean, the traditional one's fine, and people cover those, and that's great. Whatever. Do you like the Mariah Carey Christmas song?
I actually do like the Mariah Carey Christmas song. I think that's the last good. I think that's the last good Christmas song.
Good original new Christmas song.
No, I need one caveat on my Wham! Discussion though before we move on from that. I enjoy Last Christmas a lot, but I like the Jimmy Eat World version of that same song.
So wait, is the Jimmy Eat World version?
That's my jam. That's my holiday jam.
Is this better than the Wham! Version? I mean, how?
Oh God, yes, that's my jingle jam.
We're talking about Christmas, we're talking about a Christmas song from the '80s. So really, how much better can it possibly? It's like taking.
It doesn't have Wham! In it. That's how much better it is.
One is a really bad thing, and one is a slightly less bad thing. I mean, come on, you're really just. I don't know. Is this the kick it ever? Is this the longest?
The thing about the Wham! Version.
Christmas music on the best soccer show. I missed it. I missed the post by like that much.
You're a professional.
We're going to get to soccer, though. And the big news in the last couple of days is the potential agreement between MLS and USL Pro to get MLS reserve sides into the third division, playing a regular schedule as part of that league. This is pretty massive news on the player development front, Jared. It's come up a lot in the past couple of weeks because we've had homegrown players cut, we've had some signed. The issue of the bridge from when you get out of the academy and sign an MLS contract to getting into the first team and actually being a player ready to contribute in MLS, that's the issue. It's been the issue in American soccer for a long time. This is a step towards kind of fixing that problem, don't you think?
Yo, without a doubt, I think it's a win-win on both sides. And MLS is for, God, I don't remember how long now, probably close to 10 years or so, had an agreement where not an agreement, but I guess a good working relationship with the Bundesliga where they've gone over there, we've shared a lot of information. We always thought it was kind of more about stadiums and fan base, but this is right out of the Bundesliga playbook right here in terms of the top division teams playing in lower division lower leagues, having full teams in the second and third division. This is a big part of that. And I think if you look at the infrastructure of the Bundesliga, it's one of the most profitable leagues in the world, and also the quality of play. And they don't spend outrageous amounts of money like other do. They do a lot of homegrown talent, a lot of people coming up from their own their own systems.
So I think there is a parallel there, and obviously this happens in Spain as well. There is a parallel there, Bundesliga, with their reserve players playing in a lower division. I don't know that we should invoke the Bundesliga too much. I just think this is an obvious move for MLS to partner with a lower division to find places for their younger reserve players to get games, because that's the issue. You have to get these kid games. In fact, we might, I don't know if we're going to get to this later or not, but the news out of LA is that the Galaxy have signed the #1 prospect in the country, Gayasi Zardes, a striker that everybody raves about. I haven't seen him play. Yeah. I don't know if you've seen him play, but
it's a bit of a coup that they got him, to be honest. I mean, it was kind of similar to all the buzz that was out there when Luis Gil first came off. I think it was the U17 World Cup, where there was talk about him maybe going to Arsenal. It was kind of a big deal that RSL was able to keep that kid in the country. I'm not sure how LA was able to do it to keep this kid in there, but it's nice to know that they signed a young player like this, and they have a lot of young talent. If you have Villarreal, McBean, and these guys are going to get games. That's the big difference, is that they're going to get games.
I wonder if part of the pitch to Zardes, and I guess he could have signed a homegrown contract last year and passed on the opportunity. Now he signs. I wonder if part of the pitch is, hey, look, even if you don't get on the field for LA, and they've got a lot of games, so there's a chance he's going to play some first team games. We'll get you games. We'll find you a place to play. You'll be playing against professionals, and I think that's the big thing here is getting MLS reserve players against in a professional environment, not 10 games against each other when it works out on the weekend, a day after an MLS game, and sometimes these things are canceled for the slightest hint of weather. And in the past, it's been a joke with getting the accounting team and the accounting staff into the game because they've run out of players. This is taking that a giant leap forward. There are few details. I mean, if you haven't heard about this yet, that's the basics. MLS is talking to USL Pro. Neither side has announced anything yet. This is all kind of leaking out slowly. Apparently, it was presented at the USL annual general meeting, which was last week. So this is all very new. Details are slow in coming. All I've heard, and I don't want to say that all of this stuff is done, because I do believe it's probably an evolving situation. But there were a couple of notes out there that they would, if there's a USL Pro team nearby, that there would be some partnering there. If there isn't, they'll create a new team that will be that MLS.
Yeah, for example, in LA, it would probably be the LA Blues. I mean, Galaxy would probably partner with the LA Blues. I mean, there's other ones across the country, but the other bit of news was that if there isn't one locally, that MLS team would make one. Is that correct? Is that how I'm understanding that?
Again, I want to be very careful about speaking to specifics, because I just don't know for sure. On the back of what I heard and what we put up at NASN.TV yesterday, the people, Nick Mendola at Upper 90, New York's Western New York Soccer Magazine, it's goupper90.com. Did some digging. Listen, there's an interview apparently on a Rochester soccer show with Rochester Rhinos Chief Operating Officer Pat Ercole, where he said, "My understanding is there's some talks and they're very positive. We were told there's something that will be in place for next season, 2013, and obviously it'll be expanded on in the future. There will be an even balanced schedule. It's parity, and there's a single table in regards to scheduling because of some of the workings that are going on. We aren't totally aware of. They haven't announced any schedule. Let's see. He says." I guess part of this will come together at the National Soccer Coaches Convention in Indianapolis next month. Affiliations, that's where I'm not completely sure on details. Yeah, I don't want to get...
That's going to be the hard part.
What Nick is reporting, he said they won't necessarily make geographic sense. I was kind of told they would, but I understand if there's no USL Pro in the same general region, it might not matter where that team is located. And obviously there's a USL Pro team in Antigua. So how do you connect that to an MLS team and have it make geographical sense?
Well, if I'm not mistaken, isn't USL Pro the league that said it was going to start looking more geographically, like less travel on the road, more teams playing locally?
Yeah, the original plan was to try to make USL Pro more cost efficient based on limiting travel, but then
you know what makes it more cost efficient? Having players that MLS is picking up the contracts for. That's going to be a big deal for US Pro. They're going to get a higher level of player at no cost to them. And not just that, another big, huge benefit for USL Pro, when you think about it, there's going to be games where a Landon Donovan or a Thierry Henry may play in some of these games because they're coming back from injury. Awesome. They need a reserve game. If you look at it overseas, overseas. Look right now. Stuart Holden is playing reserve leagues for games for Bolton. That could be the type of thing that you see in the U.S. I mean, that's a huge marketing coup if every once in a while you can get a big name player like that to play a one-off game for your reserve team.
Sure, I think that's a very small consideration, but it's part of it. And I've been told that the goal is to move to almost like a full-fledged minor league affiliation system within the next couple of years, probably in 2014. The lines are open on this. If you guys have thoughts on this USL Pro situation, 201-430-2378 is our phone number. I don't know how you can find a negative about this. I just don't know. And I know there are people out there looking for them, Jared.
Well, we have an email on that subject, don't we?
We have a couple of emails on USL Pro. We should probably hit those. This one's from Zach. Guys, I'm not sure how I can process a world where young and developing players getting more time in game situations isn't a good thing for North American soccer. Sure, there are plenty of logistical things I'm concerned with, mainly work visas for players who go to Antigua Barracuda. But the big picture here is a good one. To think that people like, it's bleep, might be against more playing time for young talent is beyond me. If MLS and USL can work this out, I predict we will look at 2014 and say it was another milestone for MLS and the growth of the game in the United States. That's how kind of big this is, right?
Well, forever we've talked about infrastructure. Infrastructure is what MLS has been lacking. And it's not something that we've always said, it's not something that's going to show up overnight. But it just shows that the people running MLS are at least listening and they're open to some ideas. And they know where their failing points are right now. Their failing points right now are development academies and reserve league. They know that those are the two biggest areas that they're ridiculously behind the rest of the world in. This is a big step towards them building both of them, to be honest with you, because you have someone like a Zardes, like we're just talking about. You may not get him to sign with MLS if he doesn't think he's going to get games. I don't know that there's any. Is it just coincidence that you find out today that he's signing with the Galaxy on the heels of this kind of thing going on in the background?
I don't know. Area code 484. Who's this?
Hey guys, it's Mike.
Hey Mike, what's up?
Yeah, about the whole USL and reserves meshing. I mean, what is your opinion on how you think they should maybe handle, I guess, the non-matching geographies? Like, is the MLS team really going to be sending 5 players down to Orlando?
Right. Well, look, it's got to make some kind of geographical sense, because if you've got reserve players aren't going to get MLS games on a regular basis, you can send them to wherever, a couple hours down the road and have them stay there until they're needed back at their MLS team. I mean, if they're not dressing, that's the whole point, right? They're not dressing for the MLS team on the weekend, so you send them down to Harrisburg or Bumble F or wherever the hell sorry, that's not nice. Wherever the USL Pro team is, and have them stay there until they're called up. Essentially, that it's almost like a minor league system that people are familiar with.
Like just think of it as more of a short-term loan. That's how I kind of think of it. I mean, there's certain players that are going to be one-off game kind of players. The guys that are just basically fringe guys that didn't get a game on Saturday, and there might be a USL game on Sunday, and it's local. They get that one-off game. But but there's other guys that you're not going to see probably for weeks at a time, and those guys will travel with this team.
Well, there are some logistical, mechanical things working here. I mean, the basics of what I was told is that these would be distinct clubs. Well, if they're distinct clubs, then the player's international certificate or whatever has to be transferred to that club, and then getting it back is an issue. I don't want to, like I said, the details are still kind of sketchy.
The international certificate, was there one team playing outside the United States right now in USL Pro? Is it just one?
No, I don't mean it that way. I mean, the way that MLS works, a player can play for 3 teams in a season because MLS is single entity, and they kind of get around. They do an end run around the FIFA law that says you can only play with 2 teams in a season. With these teams, if they are not specifically MLS own teams, and I don't know how that works, then you may not be able to have him go back and forth. I'm not sure how that'll work. Area code 413, who's this?
Hi, responding to the MLS Reserve League integration.
Sure. What's your name?
James.
Hey, what's up, James?
Nothing much. How are you?
I'm good. So what are your thoughts on this situation?
I think that this is a lot more win-win than I think we might be giving it credit for. I mean, the United Soccer League, which is the head of the USL Pro, 3rd division, they've been looking to get a better system for their players, up and at them out of the USL Pro. I mean, it's a great division on its own for amateur soccer, but to have the MLS sides on their backs, that's fantastic for tickets, attendance, that
Sure.
kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah. Look, the kind of the meshing of those two organizations. Thanks for the call, James. Is going to do wonders for USL Pro from a business standpoint. But I don't want to turn this into the idea that MLS is kind of giving a bone to USL Pro. This is everybody scratching each other's back in this situation.
Exactly. It's a huge part of that.
Yeah. Let's not color it as the big Willie on the block is giving a handout to the lower.
Should NASL feel slighted at all that this is a USL Pro agreement?
Look, I don't know where NASL falls in this, and there was some, when the initial news came out, there was some talk. Well, NASL had started to get cozy again with MLS. I don't know, but NASL wants to do its own thing. They want to be a legitimate second division, and there are Tim Robbie down in Miami. Fort Lauderdale, where they're looking to build their own stadium, but not necessarily for MLS purposes, just to have one, is saying things like, we want to reach the point where we're on par with MLS.
I love that they just want a vanity stadium. Like there's no real reason for it, just to have it.
No, I don't think it's vanity at all. They are a soccer club, and if they're going to put roots in Fort Lauderdale, they're going to call themselves the Strikers, and they're going to be there forever. And we want them to be there forever as part of this, then they need their own stadium just to fit what they want to do. If it's 10,000 seats, that's perfectly fine. Every third, fourth division club in England has got a 10,000 seat stadium. Why can't the United States do the same thing? Area code 202. Who's this?
Hey guys, it's Rick.
Hey, what's up, Rick?
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. I mean, this is the sort of thing, I've been calling for a while in terms of using the pre-existing infrastructure, the pyramid, as a de facto reserve league. My only concern is if it's going to be a division, like the Union already have a pre-existing relationship with Harrisburg.
Right.
They send players down occasionally, that sort of thing. But for teams that don't have USL side nearby, if they're going to be setting up their own, doesn't that give them more control over style of play, coaching?
Sure.
It's sort of a competitive advantage in the sense of developing players that way.
Look, these are all legitimate concerns that will have to be addressed as part of this. He's got a point. I mean, the thing about this agreement from a USL Pro perspective, Jared, is that you shouldn't be compromising the competition of USL Pro just to shoehorn some MLS.
I don't see how getting better players and more young players that are top prospects into that league. I don't see how that's going to negatively impact the on the play performance.
Again, there are some details to figure out, but for the most part, I think everybody is in agreement that this is a good idea. It's the best soccer show, North American Soccer Network, NASN.TV. Sorry, did I spring that on you a little bit? We just went we went longer than I wanted. We got Rawlins coming up, did I even tease Rawlins? I didn't tease.
No, but we got another segment before we do Rawlins.
I know, but I like to tease him at the top, and I should. Actually, my joke was going to be all the Austin people can hang with us for 2 segments. Eating dinner and have a small Jason and Jared back on the Best Soccer Show, North American Soccer Network. We were talking USL Pro and MLS and the rumors of an agreement, MLS reserve integration into the third division of the American Pyramid, which, we call it the American Pyramid. There's not really a whole lot of connection between the levels, but, hey, this would be a nice way to do that. There are some obvious questions that relate to one division working with with another division, and future weird things where we act like we're Europe, but that's so far down the road. I don't even want to bother with it.
Well, we should also say, though, that part of that pyramid we said is the third division USL Pro, and we're going to have an interview with Phil Rollins from Orlando City in our next segment.
Yeah, this is Jared doing my job for me because I failed to get it in quick enough. I like when you do that. I know.
Get it out there, son.
Right. It's a good segue. Orlando's still in USL Pro, wants to be in MLS. Talk to Phil Rollins. We'll have that interview at the top of the third segment coming up. So everybody from Austin can continue to listen to us for the next 10 or 15 minutes or so before
Get
you
over it, Austin. Get over it. You got craft beer, you get Austin City Limits, you got plenty of good stuff going your way. You're gonna get another team.
Austin is weird. You guys are lucky. Keep it just deal. All right. We are gonna keep the lines open. If you want to talk USL Pro MLS relationship, 201-430-2378. We'll talk about that all night. Or all show rather, and on the phone lines. But there are some other news items out there worth discussing. The Americans have a game in January. Jared, they've gotten a friendly BBVA Compass Stadium in Houston against mighty Canada.
You think Neil Galati had to force Klinsmann's hand here a little bit? I mean, you get the notion that Klinsmann did not want to have a friendly during this window, but it's always been that way, and you get the feeling that it's last minute. This is kind of like when Don Rickles would come on the Tonight Show. Like, it's another good. I mean, he recorded McHale's Navy right across the hall. So if the guest canceled, it was like, oh, get Rickles over here real quick. Get Rickles over here. Not that Rickles wasn't a great guest. Rickles a great guest, but you get the feeling it's that last minute get.
Oh, I'm entirely positive that's, nobody else was available, and Canada's fine. I mean, look, they gave us the game the last time. Let's not discount them and just say it's always going to be a walk in the park. The last time the United States played Canada, it was very ugly, and the Americans didn't come out looking very good. I think it was a draw, if I remember correctly, but a 0-0 draw, was that right? So
I think Canada may have more regular starters for this game than the U.S. will, because so many of their players play in MLS. Wherever U.S. is not going to have their full bevy of European stars. And I mean, they're going to be missing Julian de Guzman. Who else is Canada going to be missing? They're going to have most of their guys.
I don't want to really go down the Canada roster. I think that's the least of Klinsmann's concern. Who's on the other side? I mean, the main concern, the main focus is getting those MLS players. We assume most of them that he's going to be looking at in January camp a game.
Which Scandinavian?
It's Scandinavian. Erico 254. Who's this?
Hey, this is
You cut off there. I have no idea what your name is.
Hey, this is Phil.
Hey, what's up, Phil?
Hey, not much. I was wondering about this USL Pro integration, if it might do any help for, or have any help for homegrown players. There was an article out a while ago about how all these homegrown players getting released by their teams pretty shortly because they're not getting the playing time, or if they do get playing time, it's not significant.
No, I think that's a major factor in this. Thanks for the call, Phil. Homegrown players should benefit probably more than anybody else, Jared. I mean, that's what we're talking about. This will be for college kids who aren't ready to contribute right away. It'll be for guys you sign young and think of as future starters. But it's mainly it's the connection between the academy and
what I'm wondering more than anything, though, is the salary cap going to fluctuate or increase at all to be able to basically you're going to be having more guys on the roster likely, because not only do you have to field the 18-man roster all the time, but you're going to have now these guys in the farm system that you're picking up the tab for. Is the salary cap going to increase to support this process?
You've already got a bunch of off-budget slots. I can't remember what it is. It's 18 to 24 are off-budget, or 21 to 22 to 20, whatever that number is. There's a group of off-budget salaries. Well,
and then the other side of this as well is like a lot of these Generation Adidas kids, or these guys that are homegrown players, they don't get a certain amount of games. If they get a certain amount of games, their salaries go up. They graduate from Generation Adidas. Is this going to keep these kids from graduating longer, because you're not going to be forced to get them into games? You're not going to be forced to really put them into games so that they can qualify or graduate from Generation Adidas.
It's possible. Erica 631, who's this?
Yeah, this is Mike. How you doing?
Hey, Mike, what's up?
Nothing. So I got to admit, this is the first I'm hearing of the MLS USL Pro thing.
Do you not follow us on Twitter, Mike?
Figure out is. Sorry, say that again.
Jared was giving you a little grief for not following us on Twitter. Best Soccer Show.
Well, I do follow you on Twitter, but I guess I don't follow you individually. I just follow the show.
Okay. We tweeted it from the show account. Go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
That's all right. So the question is, I guess I'm just struggling with the whole concept of having the reserve players playing in a third division as opposed to having them playing in a second division like NASL.
Look, I mean, the difference. Thanks for the call. I that's a small thing. Is USL Pro the best competition that they could get? No, it's not. I mean, the best competition.
Three years ago, USL Pro was the second division. I mean, USL was the second division.
A bunch of teams split off, and some of those teams have bigger budgets, but some of them have moved up to MLS. Things it's a nominal situation, second division, third division. USL Pro probably has a lot lower budget than NASL, which means the competition will be slightly less, but it's still professional players, playing the game hard for a paycheck, and I think that matters. Area code 609, who's this?
Marshall.
Hey, Marshall, what's up?
My question is, what do you think this does to the academy system with the USL Pro MLS merger? I'm a Union fan. We kind of have a unique system, but not all clubs have really good academy system. So I'm wondering how you think this is going to affect that.
Should it, Jared? Thanks for the call, Marshall.
I think, someone like Philly, it may affect, because obviously going down to micro level to how it applies to Marshall, they don't have an academy system. So, right. I mean, they're relying on a lot of different, their system needs to either get on, I think they need to adapt more of the system that other, like Real Salt Lake, LA, all those, Seattle, these other teams are going, where it's an actual development academy system that these kids are in. Take, for example, I know here in LA, the guys that were in the development academy system, they are in the LA Galaxy locker rooms. They are entrenched with these guys. They clean the boots of the first team players. They're a part of the system. And I think I don't see the USL Pro thing necessarily diverting attention or even really increasing the attention of these players. I think that's a different argument, but I think it helps you retain those guys.
We're talking about the 14-year-old who's in the academy, who like you said is around the club and gets a sense of the culture and feels a sense of loyalty to that club because he's playing in their academy. They're bringing him along. They're teaching him how to play soccer. We're talking about the 18-year-old kid who's done with the academy, who's too good for the academy. He's done. Yep. Now he's got to sign a contract. The MLS team, the parent club, the big club says, you know what? We're going to take a chance on you. Here's a contract. Instead of coming and sitting on the bench, or sitting in the stands rather, because you're probably not going to dress and not do it, and just getting a bunch of training time and not getting games, and therefore not getting the necessary competition to turn you into what we think you can be, go play in Bakersfield or wherever.
Yeah, it gives a path. It gives a 14, 15-year-old player an idea of where his career path might go. Because right now, there's a lot of either you don't make it, or the very few that do get signed, they seem to drop out of the system within a couple of years after being signed with a team right now. That's look at someone like Tristan Bowen, the very first development academy player ever signed, playing, I think, for USL Pro right now. I think he's playing for LA Blues, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure about that.
Went from LA to Chivas. That didn't work out too well.
No. Yeah, he went for LA to Chivas, and I don't believe he's on their books anymore right now either.
Okay. Look, it's a lot of questions. I think most people see this as a positive. There are some details to work out, and Philly is an interesting question, and they've got obviously their fans have some concerns with how their unique setup will work with this. Back to other topics. Again, keep that open all night. 201-430-2378 if you have thoughts on the USL Pro MLS reserve situation. We mentioned the Canada friendly. That's all fine and good. It's just a friendly. You're going to get a look at some players who might not otherwise be on Klinsmann's radar, which I always think is a good thing. In terms of qualifiers, Jared, the Americans are looking at a bunch of different sites, and we don't know yet. U.S. Soccer hasn't announced a list. We can assume Columbus will probably be right. We can assume Sporting, Kansas City, Livestrong Sporting Park will probably be right. What about Seattle? Rumors floating around that Seattle is seriously in the mix, and I don't know that I ever thought it would be a serious discussion unless it was a flat. I mean, it was a grass field.
We talked about this a couple weeks ago, I think, when we were talking about the upcoming cycle for the Hex, and I think you and I both said Seattle's a no. Seattle's a no until there's grass on the field. Now, the big bone of contention, I think that's still the big bone of contention. Everyone knows Seattle would be a glorious place to hold a Hex game. Glorious place to hold it. But is it going to be they're going to lay sod down? I mean, if you're going to lay sod on turf, no one likes that. You know,
I mean, look. Okay, if this happens, and I have no knowledge, insider knowledge that this is getting done, or the discussions have moved past the hey, we'd like a game, hey, maybe we'll consider you kind of stage. But if this does happen, I think it's going to be on their turf, just on their turf. They're going to suck it up. US Soccer will suck it up. FIFA says you can play these games. I mean, obviously, we go down to Costa Rica and play on turf all the time. Russia's got a turf field in their national stadium. They'll play it on the turf. They'll play it on somebody they don't think it'll necessarily hurt them against, and they'll trade off that surface for the 60,000 people that'll be in the stands, and they'll be okay with it. And they'll be okay with
for some reason, to me, I feel that the surface would affect the game more than the influence of a 60,000 person crowd. That's for me. I still feel that until proven otherwise, I feel the trade-off is more negative to the field than it is positive to the stands.
Okay, I don't like the turf. I don't like watching games on the turf necessarily, although Seattle can be an attractive team to watch. But at the same time, I'm aware of the theory that goes, it's not that much different than grass. The injury thing is overblown, blah, blah, blah. I'm aware of all that. Maybe U.S. Soccer has finally come around. Again, the trade-off, 60,000 people in the stands versus
You ask the players. You ask the players what they want to play on. That's what I would be interested to say. Ask the players if they want to play on turf or on grass.
Sure. But ask the players if they want to play in front of 60,000 fans that are on their side. Not on Mexico's side or the opponent's side. Because Mexico, you're definitely going to get. But not on the opponent's side, no matter who it is. But on their side, ask them if they would.
I don't know. I think 20,000 in KC can feel like 60,000, and you can be on grass.
Yeah, but at some point it'd be nice to move up a level. And Seattle's.
I agree. I want a game in Seattle, Jason. You know I do. I want a game in Seattle.
All right, let's take a break. We'll get to that Phil Rollins interview at the top of the next segment. Best Soccer Show, North American Soccer Network, NASN.TV. Back on the Best Soccer Show, North American Soccer Network. We're going to take a minute, play my interview. Take a minute, a couple of minutes. Play my interview with Phil Rollins, president of Orlando City Soccer Club, talking about MLS aspirations in Orlando, everything they've got going on there. It's quite the story, quite the effort going on in Orlando. Here's me talking to Phil Rollins. Phil Rollins, how are you, Phil?
Good morning, Jason. I'm well, thank you.
Thanks for joining us. Let's start. I know you recently had your fan forum, your end of year fan forum down there in Orlando, and while I'm sure you talked a lot about your 2012 season, which didn't quite end up the way that you wanted with a loss in the semifinals, I know a lot of the focus was on the push for MLS in Orlando. Can you give us an update? Maybe talk about what was discussed at that meeting with your fans there in Orlando.
Sure. The Fans Forum is an annual event that we do, Jason. It gives us the opportunity, obviously, to meet with the fans and update them on the future and plans for 2013 and recap a little bit, as you said, of last season, and then, excuse me, just we took the opportunity to launch our new lotto kits as well. So it was a pretty busy evening. On the MLS update, we really just shared with the fans where we are. We've had a continuing dialogue now with the MLS for close to 2 years. The commissioner came down and visited us in 2013, came to Orlando and met with the ownership group and met the fans and met the mayors, etc. At that meeting, we had the opportunity to talk in detail with Don Garber about what his plans were for Orlando and what he wanted to see. And the one thing he left us with, Jason, was the need to build a soccer-specific stadium of around 20,000. So that's what we've been focused on for the last year or so now.
Is there
working with?
Sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead. I don't want to cut you off.
I was going to say we're working with the city and the county to try and get that done.
So is there an idea of when you'll get to the point where you say, all right, we've got all of our ducks in a row, and you can go back to MLS and say, here's our stadium plan. Please consider us for admission to the league?
Well, that's a good question, because that's exactly what we're working on. We're working towards a funded stadium plan that we can take back to MLS. I think, Jason, that with the right amount of good fortune and as you said, our ducks being in a row, we should be able to get that done in the next 6 to 9 months. I'm hopeful that by maybe about the middle of next year we can take something back to MLS that clearly details how we'll get the stadium built, the funding plan, the location, the size and the scope of the stadium, and we'll be ready to go.
So if all of that comes together, if everything works out the way that you'd like it to, what kind of timeline are you looking at? And maybe you've gotten some indication from MLS, or maybe this is just hopes and dreams of Orlando City. When do you expect that you could get into the league?
We stay very, very focused on March of 2015. It's a date we have written up large on our wall in the office. We're working towards that, and we keep working towards that. That's a very aggressive timescale, and we're aware that it may well slip. But as I say to the staff every day, it won't slip because of lack of trying. We'll aim to get there for then. I think it's possible. It means it's a stretch. It's an aggressive goal, but it's one we keep very focused on. So I'm hopeful 2015 or at the latest 2016. We could bring Major League Soccer here to Orlando.
Has MLS told you that timeline is realistic?
We've discussed it in detail with them. We've gone over it with them, and there's no reason to believe it isn't realistic as long as we can manage the components on our end. So is there a distinct possibility in your mind that Orlando gets into MLS before the league launches their second New York team? That's always, certainly in my mind, that's always been the case. I think there's every opportunity that happens. The league is working very hard on the second franchise in New York, as everyone knows, and they'll continue to do that. That's their priority, and it should be. But there's a lot of work to be done there, and there's a lot of things that can slip and slow down, and it doesn't. As I've said to the fans at the fans forum, the two are not connected. Our entry into MLS and if you like, New York 2 are not connected entities. One can happen before the other. They can happen at the same time. They're not connected in any way. You can probably understand from a league fan's perspective, MLS has long talked about kind of a race to 20, or maybe not a race, but getting to 20 in an appropriate timeline, and then maybe stopping there. If you get in, and if New York gets in when the league wants them to, that takes the league to 21 teams, and that's why it's a little, it's a little surprising to hear the talk out of Orlando of getting into the league in 2015 or 2016. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I've certainly, in our discussions, I've never had any discussions with Don about the league stopping at 20. Okay. So that would be news to me. Okay, that's certainly fair. Is there in terms of the stadium, is there a model for Orlando City? Is there a stadium that you look at in the United States and say that's what we want to do here? We've looked at several, actually. In fact, we've looked at many, and we'd like to take the very best of each. There's some fantastic components to the Livestrong Park Stadium up in KC, but we won't have $250 million to build it with. But there's components there that we'd love to see incorporated into our stadium. I think Houston, for example, has done a tremendous job on a limited budget with what they've done with BBVA Compass Park. Similarly, I'm a big fan of the Philadelphia Union Stadium. That's got some great components in it as well. So it's really a case about taking the best of what we've seen around the league. And then, we've got a budget of around about $100 million. So we'll have to be aware of that budget and cognizant of it. But within that budget, we hope to build the very best stadium that we can. We'd start probably around about 18,500, 19,000, with the capacity to expand it up to maybe 24, 25 in time. And
in terms of location, I'm obviously not familiar with the lay of the land there in Orlando, but are we talking about a fairly central location? Have you identified one, or are you still kind of working with a group of spots there?
We're working with a number of potential locations. Obviously, one of the things the MLS wants us to do is to have that location to be as urban as possible. Mm-hmm. So we're looking at various sites that fit that bill. I'm sure over the next few weeks and months, one of those is going to come out as a favorite, and we'll focus on that. But right now, we've got a number that are in the hat that are very viable.
Is the stadium is dependent on Orlando City getting into MLS? You're not going to build a 20,000 seat stadium without that entry, correct?
That's correct. The two go hand in hand. We know from the MLS that's what they want to see from us. That's what we've been, as you said, focused on. The two really do go hand in hand. We want to take a funding plan back to New York with a view to negotiating the franchise and putting the two together and coming into the MLS just as soon as we can.
And you mentioned that your budget for the stadium is $100 million. Now that obviously does not include, that price tag does not include the expansion fee. Has there been direct discussions about how much it will cost for you to get into the league, and how solid is your financing there at Orlando City?
The financing is all set and in place. We're ready to go. We expect that this is going to cost us, overall, this is going to cost somewhere between $150, $160 million when you put the franchise together with the working capital necessary and the funding for the stadium. On the stadium front, we've been very clear from day one that we see that as a mixed public-private development with monies coming from the city and the county, but also from the club as well.
Now, in terms of your place there in Orlando with soccer in Florida, and there's obviously vocal groups in Miami that are looking to get back into MLS, fan groups mainly. There's this odd plan to build a stadium in Tampa, and I know the details are kind of still coming out about that plan, and it's fairly it's a very large scale kind of plan. What effect does that have on Orlando, or what are your thoughts on that general idea?
That was an idea that obviously I think for a lot of people, ourselves included, came out of left field about a week or so ago. I haven't personally had a lot of chance to look at it. We've been very wrapped up in our own business with the stadium, with MLS, with our partners, and also with the upcoming AS Roma game we've got on January 2nd. Right. So we've had very little time to actually study and look at it. I don't believe, as far as I know, I think it's mostly privately funded. But I don't believe there's aspirations to go MLS at VSI. I'm not sure about that, but certainly they haven't verbalized that to me. But we'll take a close look at it over the next few weeks. I think the real key thing. Excuse me, Jason.
No problem.
Just getting over the flu, so I apologize. I think one of the key things for us to do is to really just focus on what we need to do to succeed and achieve MLS status, and that's our stadium. So we'll stay focused on that. I'm sure Tampa won't be the only people that make an announcement like that. I expect some things will come out of Miami as well in the not too distant future, and maybe even Atlanta. But if we stay focused on what we've got to do, I've no reason to believe we won't achieve MLS status for Orlando.
Some of the names attached to that Tampa project are very interesting. So big English names are attached to that project, and you're right. It's a very out of left field. It makes it difficult to believe they can get it off the ground. But at the same time, in terms of a grander American soccer landscape, it's encouraging just that people are even thinking along those lines.
Oh, I definitely agree with you. It's encouraging to see what's happening generally in soccer in this country. I think we'll see more and more of that. I think we'll see more and more interaction with overseas marketplaces, with overseas leagues. I think Europe's very important to the league going forward. I think South America is equally important to the league going forward, especially with the World Cup and the Olympics down in Brazil in 2014, 2016. So I think we'll see the MLS internationalizing itself more and more over the coming years. And no better place to do that than the most visited city in the world, which is Orlando.
Right. Speaking of perhaps Orlando as a soccer market, maybe for those of us who aren't familiar with kind of the dynamics of that city, the demographics of that city, have you gone out and done studies and checked on the interest in MLS in Orlando? I mean, you said most visited city. I don't remember what you said, but it's obviously a very visited city in terms of
It
tourists.
is actually it's the most visited city in the world. Last year we had 53 million visitors.
Does that impact your presentation to MLS in terms of Orlando as a potential city for MLS?
Very much so, Jason. I think and Don and I had a long conversation about this. If the league's plan is to really internationalize the league, which I think it is, it certainly wants to develop its profile overseas, then no better place to do that than, as we said, the most visited city in the world and the best market for internationalizing the game.
But there is a solid base of a core base of local soccer fans that will drive interest in Orlando City. Have you measured
very
that?
Much so. Yeah, we would not by any means be hanging our hat on the visitor base at all. We've got a tremendous core group of fans that live right here in Orlando. We've got one of the fastest growing cities in the country. It's the 14th largest urban marketplace and the 19th largest television marketplace in the country. And we've got a tremendous fan base and following. We average nearly 7,000 fans a game this year in USL Pro. We've no reason to believe that couldn't be 17,000, 18,000 fans every week in the MLS. So we've got a really strong local supporter base that really wants this. And to be honest with you, very little professional sports competition either with just the Magic in town.
Yeah. That model obviously has seemed to work in places like Portland. I can obviously see that where you're not fighting necessarily for the front of the sports page all the time against an NFL team or anything like that is good news for MLS. Now, just to go off the expansion track just a little bit, and while you have big aspirations then Orlando and are working towards an MLS expansion franchise, you're still in USL Pro. And I'm going to throw this at you. This news came out yesterday that perhaps USL Pro and MLS are working towards an agreement on a reserve league integration with MLS. Do you have any knowledge of that?
I do, but I couldn't comment on it because obviously both sides are under a non-disclosure agreement. Okay. And so at this stage, it'd be imprudent of me to comment on it.
I understand. I appreciate you at least humoring me there. All right, Phil Rollins, president of Orlando Orlando City Soccer Club. Big plans there, trying to get an MLS. Thank you for the details, Phil. Appreciate it.
Pleasure, Jason. Anytime.
Talk to you soon.
Take care.
So about MLS, Jared, I've decided that I need to internationalize. How do I do that?
I just love that word. I didn't know that making something international was a verb. That's great.
This is corporate speak. Are
they going to do it through synergy though?
They're going to synergize they're going to internationalize through synergy.
There you go.
Then they will. All of that stuff.
It was funny though. Something I wrote to you while we were listening to that, because that's the first time I had heard it. It's so apparent that there's an arms race. There's a soccer's arms race going on in Florida right now.
It's interesting, right? I mean, we talk a lot about whether MLS needs to get back into Florida. Obviously, Orlando City seems like the front runner to do that, and Phil Rollins think they can do it by 2015. And the nice little detail we got out of that discussion: if the stadium is $100 million, and he says that all overalls could be 150 to 160 to finance this deal, that's a $50 or $60 million expansion fee into MLS. And now Tampa's got that stadium, that weird stadium plan. Miami people continue to throw stuff at Don Garber all the time, filling up his voicemail box and everything else. It's interesting down there in Florida.
Well, it's interesting that I like MLS's approach though. It's like prove that you can do it. Listen, we got bitten twice. Prove to us that you can do it on your own dime. Show us that it's there, and then we'll back you up.
It's very National Geographic. It's very, the female is standing, not the MLS, whatever. The female standing.
They got droopy boobs? What?
Standing on the side, watching these guys peacock around, trying to say, I'm the best. Look at this plumage over here. And look at, I've got the
plumage. I love that the word plumage made an appearance on the show.
Thanks again to Phil Rollins for giving us for showing up and giving us some details and doing it all while sick. I mean, not the most beloved guy.
That's what I like about Phil Rollins when we get him on the show, though. Very candid. Candid. I mean, to a point where he says so much that you feel like he must be almost making up for something, like, because you're not used to someone being that candid. So either
Right.
A, he's extremely candid, or B, he says more than he should, or he plays more of his hand to force MLSs. I don't know which one it is, but I hope that he's just being very candid, because if he is, there's big things going on in Orlando.
Yeah, he did say there was an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement with the situation with the reserve league, which I find interesting and kind of gives some
Which
credence.
means something without saying something, doesn't it?
Yes, I think it absolutely means something without saying something. A couple of notes here while we have a minute or two. MLS signings, big signings in MLS, Jared, and they got buried today. We just too much stuff to talk about. Juninho Pernambucano. You want to say Pernambucano?
Well done. Well done. I do not want to try that.
The other Juninho, which he's not because he was there before, and he's got the rep as he won things in France and won things in Brazil.
He's got the world class pedigree that the Juninho in LA does not.
At the amazing free kicks that the young Juninho in LA does not. So I don't know. I guess we're gonna have to figure out a way to.
It's funny. I have a buddy who dated a girl named Michelle, and then he broke up with her, and he got with a new girl named Michelle, and now they have a kid together. So I called like one 1.0 and one 2.0.
Yeah, that's
I feel that's where we got Juninho 1.0 and 2.0.
That's an easy way to go. So which one is which though? Is Pernambucano 1.0?
I think Juninho in LA was here first in MLS, so I think he's 1.0 when it comes to MLS.
You see why there could be confusion. All right, look, I think this is an interesting signing for Red Bull. Obviously, it's a win now signing. He's 38. He'll be 38 years old when the MLS season starts. He's not going to be, he's not going to do a lot of running. You're going to ask Dax McCarty to do a lot of heavy lifting in that midfield in New York. He can obviously hit a free kick. He can obviously pick a pass. This could be a good thing if he can connect with Thierry Henry and whoever their forwards are. Spindola, they're looking at a French forward whose name I can't recall right now. Apparently, well, that's a rumor out there. It could be interesting for New York with Juninho in the mix now. He's obviously an incredibly technical player and should bring something to the league. Whether that's successful in a physical league, I don't know.
What I'm wondering is he going to be more of a Valderrama style where he's 37 now, and that's up there in age. Is it going to be a type where he moves the ball but he doesn't move his body so much, kind of like the way Valderrama played, which was extremely effective. Valderrama was extremely effective in this league.
Sure, but is the league the same as it was when Carlos Valderrama was doing?
I think it's a lot more physical and a lot more. I think you have a lot less time on the ball than you did when Valderrama was in the league.
And I think that's the issue, and that's the concern there. Sporting Kansas City gets themselves a designated player. I'm going to try this. Is it B. Ayler? I don't know.
That is the most French-looking, Spanish-sounding name I've ever seen.
All right, so yay or nay on this signing? Scored a bunch of goals in Ecuador.
Way too early to know. I don't know. 20 goals last year in Ecuador. You got to trust that. Listen, Sporting Kansas City has been the most active team in the transfer window, making all sorts of moves, and I think mostly for the better. Everything else has been for the better and for a more technical side, but we'll see. This one can be a question mark.
There are, look, they need a goal scorer. They need a finisher. A clinical finisher there in Kansas City.
So is there got to be an odd man out between Bunbury, CJ Sapong, Kai Kamara, and this new player? Kai Kamara can fall into midfield.
Sure. Well, you wonder if people are picking up the phone saying, which one of these guys is available and how do I get him? Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll maybe a little bit more on the MLS signings. Michael Parkhurst got a new deal. Josie and Gooch scored goals. Lots of stuff. Best Soccer Show, North American Soccer Network, NASN.TV. Back on the Best Soccer Show, closing out this edition on a Wednesday night. Jason and Jared. Sometimes I think we could do 2 hours, and sometimes I wonder if we should try.
Sometimes I wonder if we can even do an hour, and other times it's like we can't fit it all in.
Look, dude, it was like last week we were bitching about how, it's the off season. We were going.
I know.
And we felt bad about talking not soccer for like 5 minutes, and you said, it's the off season. Who cares? Nothing's all this crap is happening.
Careful what you wish for, dude.
All this stuff is happening. One thing that is happening. I think we were talking about venues for the U.S. men's national team, and I know you had a pick your poison, and I love pick your poison. So you have to throw it out there for me.
All right, so I was thinking about the upcoming Hex games and the venues that are going to be out there, and I started to think to myself about. We talked about it when we had Dad Wurzma at the HDC. We talked about the U.S. Mexico game is the marquee game every time the Hex comes around for a traveling. Yeah, it's like a meeting. It's like the meeting game,
Okay. Go.
So
ask your question.
Back up.
I know.
All right, so which game would you be more likely to want to travel to over the course of the Hex? A Columbus game against Mexico or a Seattle game against Costa Rica?
Okay, now I'm not sure that there's a lot of choice here. I'm not sure that this is a difficult decision. I mean, Seattle's a great.
Really?
I think it's Mexico and Columbus a million times out of a million. There's obviously some there's a history there. This is
with all the talk that's been about Seattle with the U.S. men's national team, and what do you see what they do at the Sounders level? Wouldn't you like to see what that feels like when pointed towards your country?
I would love to see 60,000 people in the stands cheering for the United States in a hostile environment for the other team, for the visitors. I would love to see that. But Mexico in Columbus, come on! I've never been to one. I
haven't been to one either, but I feel I've seen that. I haven't seen the other one.
All right, the Wall of Sound in Seattle would be amazing, but just being at that place, kind of a nod to the history of, it's not deep rooted history. It's only the last 12 years or so. But just being there in Columbus, I think would be very, very cool. Let's talk about Michael Parkhurst, who goes from Denmark to the Bundesliga with Augsburg, which I'll be honest with you, I was not super familiar with Augsburg. It kind of took me a second to realize they were in the Bundesliga. But Michael Parkhurst gets his deal moving up to the Bundesliga. Yeah, they're in a relegation fight. They're 10 points adrift. They're in 17th place in an 18-team league. This is not great. They've given up a ton of goals. Is this a positive move for Michael Parkhurst?
I think it's a positive move for Parkhurst if one of two things happens. First of all, if they stay up, great move for Parkhurst if he's able to help them stay up. If they don't stay up, I hope he has a clause that lets him back out and he doesn't move down to the second Bundesliga. I think that's where the fear is there. I think that obviously when you talk about winter transfers and a player of the kind of fringe notoriety of Michael Parkhurst, this is the type of team that needs him. A team that's in a fight. You see it all the time. When Americans seem to go to these type of teams where there's a team that's in a fight and they're trying to make a move for safety. If I remember correctly, I think when Bradley first went to Mönchengladbach, I think that was the same position they were in. There is part, but obviously he's moving to a higher quality. He's going to be tested at a higher quality. I'm nervous that it's going to be for only a short period of time.
It's absolutely a great move for Michael Parkhurst and the right move, even if it is a relegation fight. I think exposure in the Bundesliga, playing against big clubs, playing in Jurgen Klinsmann's native country is a good idea. Area code 972 on the phones. Who's this?
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Will.
Hey, Will. What's on your mind?
Hey, I had a discussion on Twitter the other day, and it kind of brought me the question about what you expect on the field because the U.S. men's national team's coming out to play Canada. And they were talking about what would they prefer, with a win or how you look. And you only had to choose either or. You couldn't do both. And I was kind of torn on just getting the result, but I think I would be more favored into the way you look, more so than just a win. I just wanted to see what you guys thought about that the upcoming match, how you wanted to see the U.S. and Canada play.
All right, let's put that. We'll play that as well. I don't think this even merits a pick your poison. I am always more concerned about playing well in a friendly than winning.
Yeah, and especially because the opponent's Canada and Canada won't be in the Hex, you wouldn't want to give confidence to a team you're going to be playing in the Hex, especially one like Canada that historically hasn't beat the U.S. In this scenario, there's no threat of that. You're not going to give confidence to a team you're going to play in the Hex. So I think that I agree with you. On the field is all that matters. You're looking for matchups and performances.
I know this fan base well enough. The U.S. men's national team fan base would know well enough to know that even if they play well and create a bunch of chances and lose the game 1-0 on a fluke or a penalty, that's not going to be good enough. It's not going to be good enough that they looked good. It will still be, they didn't finish their chances. If they lose,
then the expectations of the fan base is way off.
No. But this is just in a vacuum, that one game, because there's nothing else going on. A friendly with players that aren't going to be featuring in the Hex for the most part. That's just the way people are going to think, and I can't really fault people for wanting to win games, period. And you can always pick, you can always look for a negative. They create 12 chances, 12 excellent scoring chances, only put one of them away, then yeah, there were 11 failures. But if you lose the game on a fluke goal on the other end and don't...
But 11 failures of good opportunities tells you the midfield is working well.
Sure. That's the thing. You could look a little bit deeper and find all those good things. But for the most part, it's going to be they didn't put them away. Let's touch on a couple of national team players, or at least one who's still a current national team player. The other one, I'm not so sure. Josie scored a goal, a very nice goal. I saw like a special breakdown version of the highlight. It was kind of cool. The little circle comes around him and tracks his run. He created space a couple of different times to get the shot off far post. Very nice goal for Josie.
He's comfortable, and that's what I see from that goal. 2 cutbacks, comfortable on the ball, doesn't rush the initial shot, which should have been from a bad angle, works the ball 2 times to a better angle and a nice, really small window put away.
2 years ago, last year maybe, he puts that ball wide of the net with his right foot off the first cut. That's what he does. Now he cuts back again.
It's something you hear from athletes all the time, Jason, is that when you get to a certain level, the game slows down. And you see it and you see that right now with Josie, that the game's slowing down for him and that he has time within the normal framework of the game to make decisions.
Gucci Onyewu scored a goal. Kind of an odd...
What the hell you say?
In a cup game for Malaga. It was an equalizer in the 93rd minute, so obviously a big goal in that competition. The goalkeeper was in no man's land, came out all the way out of the top of the box. I don't know what he was thinking. Gooch goes up and gets there before.
I don't know what he was thinking coming up against Gooch.
No, that's true. Don't mess with Gooch. So good news out of Spain for Gucci Onyewu, who, again, don't know if he's a national team player anymore. Probably not, but always good to see him doing well wherever he is, now that he's found a place.
Does a reserve team player for Malaga maybe get released for a winter camp in the U.S.?
No, I don't think so. Very interesting stuff. It's been on Deadspin, which is big news. MLS has featured it. It originated, I think, with some people out in Portland. 1924 U.S. Open Cup footage of Fall River Marksman and Vesper Buick. Is that right? Do I have that?
St. Louis, yeah.
St. Louis. Very cool. Really, it was like 30 seconds long. Showed a goal. The oldest American soccer footage is what they're saying. It's like, I love seeing that old stuff. Like, I've gone on YouTube and looked at like 1898 footage out of England.
Two things that came away from this though. Two things that came away from this. One, very impressed by the crowd that was there. Not impressed by what I saw on the field.
Look, it was 1920.
They're playing with a sheep's bladder, for God's sakes, or something. I mean, the ball's different. A lot of things are different.
Yeah.
I was like, ooh, wow, that doesn't look so good. But amazing that there's that many people in the crowd, and it's cool more than anything else to see it.
It's just cool. It reinforces the notion that we need a National Soccer Hall of Fame, and we need it somewhere. I mean, I've said St. Louis would be fine. If you want to put an MLS city, a lot of people on Twitter floating the idea of a Hall of Fame wherever DC United puts their new stadium, which would be fine with me. In the nation's capital, can't go wrong with that. All right, we got to rush to get out of here. Make sure you guys go to iTunes, ratings and reviews. Keep us at the top. I haven't checked our ranking in a while, Jared, but I hope we haven't had
a review in 2 months. What's up, people?
We need a review. If you're a new listener, review us. If you're an old listener who never reviewed us, review us. Do it for us. We're on Twitter, Best Soccer Show. We're on YouTube /Best Soccer Show. We're all over the place. Go look. Facebook.com/Best Soccer Show. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Anything else, Mr. Dubois? Any parting shot?
That's it. Let's get out.
Let's get out of here. We'll talk to you guys on the weekend. Bye.
Only the best.
Danger zone!
Jay Rodius.